Hello, my friends. Thought I'd do a little summary, kind of what we used to call in the military a situation summary, kind of an overview that kind of brings in a lot of things together and kind of rapidly kind of go over what the big kind of things are on the horizon. And in particular, trying to, again, as we've talked about before, look out about 10 years from now and posit the possibility that people like Marty Armstrong have talked about, that you got a whole new set of geopolitical relationships, that is to say, new countries and changes within national borders and so on. But more than that, then you're into the beginning of a whole new era that is, we've talked about, that's say 1,000 years of peace or whatever you want to call it. In any case, it's a big shift, and it happens between here and there. And if you think about this kind of systematically, what needs to happen necessarily are almost two basic things. One of them is that there has to be some very disruptive catalytic event. It's almost not enough time for it to be evolutionary. It's almost got to be revolutionary. I mean, it could ramp up and take 2 or 3 years to kind of come to a head, but in cosmic time, that isn't much time at all. But in any case, something rather dramatic that needs to happen. I'd argue that it has to happen sooner rather than later, because if you're going to reconfigure this whole thing in 5 or 6 years or something into a whole new set of relationships and organizational structures and values and principles and other such things like that, then it needs to happen kind of sooner rather than later. Another requisite of this is that it almost certainly has to be enabled by artificial intelligence. There's just so many moving parts, and it's moving so fast that the only way you can get your arms around it in time and everything is to have the help, if you will, of artificial intelligence, which would increase your effectiveness maybe 50 times or some, huge kinds of numbers, because you can rapidly get answers and you can rapidly get options and so on, sources, things like that you couldn't otherwise do it. There's some other things that are necessary in this kind of space, but the kind of underlying point is that you kind of can't get there from here. There's no kind of easy path from here to there in the amount of time that we've got available to us. This is going to be a big shift in a short period of time. And so then you got to say, so what's driving that? What is the thing that's doing that? One of the other components that has got to be present is that you have got to have the internet in place. There's no way that you take a highly complex system like this and you reconfigure it very rapidly without having very robust communication lines to be able to find answers, find people, allow folks to reorganize, reposition themselves. You just can't do it without in the dark, as it were, without having access. So, for instance, you can't do this if there's a large nuclear war or an electromagnetic pulse that takes down the whole grid and the internet. You can't do it if you've lost a great deal or a significant portion of your infrastructure for one reason or another, because what happens is you immediately refocus on trying to get the roads put together, or the buildings, or water, or sewer, or whatever it turns out to be, the very fundamentals, the basics. And you're really not interested in kind of higher level Maslow kind of things in that kind of a situation. You're not trying to get higher levels of consciousness if you can't eat and you're scrambling around trying to find food for your family and so on. So you've got to have this openness, this kind of you have to be liberated enough from what's going on around that you can kind of move forward. And so that starts, and so now you can start to see the outline of this whole thing is that there is a necessary set of conditions that must be in place for us to successfully and rapidly disconnect ourselves from the old world and rapidly search for and find new sets of relationships and connections that support a whole new way of thinking and living. Now, this is not to say that there's not a lot of chaos and stuff going on around, but what it means is that in a very real and practical sense that we all have, those of us who are trying to run down this new track, we have to be isolated from all of that. We do not, emotionally isolated. You can't be worrying about it. You can't be concerned about it. You got to see that there's an alternative path, and you've got to have kind of a modicum of underlying perspectives, if you will, that give you hope in the middle of all of this. We just did a quartet the other day and yesterday, and we talked about the fact that you have to have hope, and hope comes from having faith in the system and in the process, among other things. You have to kind of know in your gut that this is going to work out all right, and that the system is benign and it's loving at its core, and it's just our job to raise ourselves to the new level of being able to deal with the next stage of human development. And just because it's disruptive and uncertain and chaotic does not mean that it's effectively under control or it's headed down a path that's really going to turn out to be something pretty wonderful. It's no different than kind of childbirth or something, where lots of new things and extraordinary pains and trauma and whatever and noise and stuff all happen all at once. If it's the first time you've ever done it, then they are largely strange. You're not used to those kinds of things, but you get a new life out of the back end of it. But what has to happen underneath this whole thing is that at some level, the old system has got to break apart. It's got to become fundamentally ineffective. And you know why? Because if it doesn't, all of us will hang on to the old system because that's what's familiar, and that's where we get our sense of security and our sense of meaning and other kinds of stuff, because you get the predictability that's associated with something that you think and at least it's very familiar in the past. But of course, you get no change if things are comfortable and predictable and so on. You have no reason to change. There's no driving force. Why would you want to change if it's all fine and it's all good? And so, what has to happen under here is that there's a series of events that are almost certainly going to start to pull the plug on the old framework, the old system, the old collection of relationships and understandings and such that it frees us all up to go and start to find some new ideas and start to build a world around a new set of concepts and principles and such. At the same time, if you're not looking at it in those kinds of terms, in these proactive, forward-looking, transitional the large kind of strategic perspective that understands where this is going and realizes that we're not going to get locked in the middle of all of this stuff and that it's all sun is going to shine on the back end. If you don't understand that, then you get captured by all of the trauma and the movement and the uncertainty and the fear. And that then effectively and rapidly drives you over toward the technocracy side where they want to control you, and you readily kind of agree to that. So even on the positive side, on the freedom track, if you will, that we're interested in, as I said, the old systems, the old components of the old system have to come apart. They have to fail. They have to, I don't know, they cannot continue to operate the same way they have. Not all of them. I mean, some of them probably will at some level. The sun's going to shine in the morning and such. But that there's enough of a disruption that it presents the kind of the platform or the possibility then of moving into a new space. And that then opens the system up and allows the new ideas to come in that are going to populate and inform and illuminate this new world, because it's all going to be about new things, and the new things are coming from somewhere else. They're new, right? They're new. So they come from lots of different kind of places, but they're all going to come from a lot of places and all of it kind of in a short period of time. That's what supports the exponential change, the curve that are going and we're driving up. It's going to be influenced by our personal, who we are personally, and now the energies from the galaxy and from the sun and such affect our DNA and start to allow us to find and access and develop capabilities that have been inherent but disconnected essentially for eons, and now they're going to get all opened up. But that doesn't happen unless big changes happen, and that open them up and prepare the environment, if you will, for us to disconnect ourselves and go off in a new direction. So you've got to kind of have your eyes on the North Star of this whole process, and you have to have an increasingly clear concept about where this is going and what it's all about and why it's going to be okay, even though everywhere you look around you, or not everywhere, but many of the places you look around you are coming apart at the seams in increasingly shrill terms, right? All you have to do is look at all what's going on in geopolitics right now and wars and all this stuff. And God, if you get focused on it in kind of linear terms, you just have no idea how you get it. I mean, it's just increasingly complex and opaque in terms of what the solutions are. And so that can't be the path forward. The path forward is to understand is there's something outside of what's meeting your day-to-day attention, what you're seeing all around you. You have to realize that that's just background noise to where you're really going, and that even though it's not clear yet where this new place is, that it is there, and you know in your gut that it is, and there's just a bit of excitement about the whole thing because you're waiting for the thing to show up, and you're trying to see where it goes, where it is, and how it all works, and you're pushing different kind of places and trying different kind of things, all looking for this break that's gonna kind of show us all where the path into this new space is going to be. And so what I wanted to do is just rapidly, and then I got to spend a lot of time on it, to try to just remind us all about the different disruptive possibilities that are going to play out all around us. And again, let me come back and reinforce and say that you do not get yourself to a new world without some degree of stability, a degree of communications, new information. There is a core solid path toward this new world, or else there is no path to the new world, because, like I say, there's so many moving parts and they're all going 16 different ways, that if there isn't a solid it may be a narrow path, right? But there is going to be a solid path, because the day that, Cryon used to say, people would ask him, are we going to have a nuclear war that knocks everything out? And or some big catastrophic event like that. And he said, no. If something like that would happen, it would drive everybody back down into much, much lower levels of development, because instead of rising to higher levels of consciousness, it would bang them all down in a minute, because everybody would be, wondering how to stay alive, searching for food and all of those kinds of stuff. So again, to visualize this, there's a necessary solid path that may be narrow, but a solid path going into this new world, and it's built around, at the very fundamental level, this assumption that this is all going to be all right. It's happened before, different other places, and that is to say, other planets and galaxy. And there's intelligent help in the mix, and they're not going to let us, well-meaning folks whose hearts are right and their consciousness is high, they're not going to let us do some horrible thing happen to us. I mean, I don't know exactly what that means, but what I do believe is that there are intelligent, benevolent kind of forces that are in play here. Maybe they're largely a function of our own orientation and our own mindset. But in any case, we're not limited to the narrow kind of box in which we can see with our six senses. Because this is moving really fast, and it's very hard to make sense out of it in the logical terms we've all been taught, or the way that you make sense out of things. And so there are any number of combinations of things that could happen that would break up the old system and then allow us necessarily and obviously to disconnect from the kind of tethers that are holding us back and allow us to move into this new space. We all know about these waves of energy from the solar system and from solar flares and things like that. Any number of those things could happen. It would, in this model at least, you don't have any big solar flare that fries the earth and drives everybody back down to the Stone Age. That's not the agenda. That's not the story. This is about developing and growing higher so that we can expand outside of the planet. There's almost certain to be giant technological breakthroughs. I was talking to, I don't know, maybe it was Penny. No, I did an interview this morning with some woman who had a blog, and she was saying, you just got to believe that somebody in their garage is working on something that's really going to make a big difference. I said, of course, necessarily. What happens is the humans beings, when they're confronted with problems, they start trying to find out solutions for them. So if you've got all of the problems, intelligence agencies that could mean invasive Googles and whatever, and all of this kind of stuff, government that's on one hand, on the other hand, somewhere under the table, there are people that are working on solutions that will circumvent, whatever, these old capabilities, these old tools, because the negative byproducts of the things are the ones that are driving all of the trash that's going on the planet right now. And so you could almost bet on it that there's going to be these marvelous, interesting breakthroughs. And some of them are going to directly allow us to try to find and identify, find, and bring together like-minded people around these new social structures that are going to emerge out of this. And so there are, I would suggest there's a whole new collaboration environment that it doesn't exist right now that is going to show up and allow us to rapidly kind of find like-minded people and rapidly build relationships and resources and other such things. There are almost certain to be big and disruptive surprises, and it's kind of a catch-all category, but that's intrinsic to this whole idea that things are going to happen and they're going to be big and they're going to be very disruptive. And in that process, you can get effectively dislodged from the old world. You may be forced to get in your car and move to somewhere else because where you used to live is dysfunctional right now for whatever reason. But that will be in the end, be very liberating because now you're no longer stuck to kind of people and the relationships and the geography that you were before. And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff kind of come down. There's one of these events is almost certain to be pretty scary and pretty frightening. The kind of the stuff that's leaking out of the powers, the big high level operators, black hats, the white hats, what I call them, whatever they are. But the white hat guys, I've heard now from 3 or 4 different independent sources who appear to have independent kind of sources for themselves from different places, all come up with the same basic idea and say that the catalytic kind of process that is going to allow large numbers of people to at the last minute to reorganize themselves and head in a new direction is because they're going to get scared to death because they're going to get driven right up to the edge of a cliff. Nuclear war is commonly indicated is that it's not going to happen, but it's going to get so close that everybody's going to say, wait a second. And that then is, like I say, the catalyst that will allow rapid kind of change. It's like getting struck by lightning or something like that. And you suddenly, wow, your whole brain gets turned around and now you see the world and you see things in a really different kind of way. What you're going to see is the implosion of our governments. You're going to see the implosion of governments all over the place. And it's going to be really that's going to rapidly escalate getting unplugged from the systems that we have been dependent upon. That's for sure. And, and then of course there's the wild card things like the artificial ET show up and what all the kind of things that could attend to that. And it's, I think, important to always keep that in the table and keep it in the front of our minds because there are lots of indications that say sometime in the next couple or 3 years, in fact, that is really going to happen. And that we will suddenly see ourselves in a whole different kind of relationship and context because more so than any time in history, recorded history at least, because we will be exposed to the reality that there is other life and that we are kind of actively engaging and talking to them. Certainly, as we've all talked about the possibility of civil war and a kind of revolution kind of thing, and all that functions to break apart the old systems and the old kind of inhibitions that have been with us for throughout our life that have been systematically built around us through families and education and churches and governments and all that kind of stuff. Then there are some kind of possibilities and wild cards that we really haven't even considered before. There's a whole possibility that there's kind of I mean, you can brainstorm into this kind of space. It's just kind of fun. But the idea that they're kind of a hundredth monkey effect, that, a little stuff that's happening in different kind of places and we're really not fully aware of them, or we've only heard of it or so on. But all of a sudden it gets to this critical mass and boom, and it flips. And suddenly everybody has telepathy, or, everybody's ready for it or something, or everybody suddenly can read everybody else's auras and you can tell whether somebody's telling the truth or lying or something. I mean, these kinds of capabilities commonly kind of show up overnight with people because of one traumatic event or another experience. And so, they could, those kinds of things are all in the mix too. I mean, this is not all just what I'm trying, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not all just kind of familiar things that are 10 times higher than what we've ever seen before, or commonly understood kind of possibilities that we know are going to be disruptive, but they'd be really large and we understand them kind of. No, there's some things that really are going to, most likely to be really hard to understand and very disruptive at the same time. And they could be, a lot of them, on the positive side that would allow us and facilitate our running down this new path toward a new world. So I just thought it would be useful to kind of rebuild, like I called it, a situation summary. Just kind of keep all this stuff on the table, because when you know about it and think about it, you don't have to actively kind of immerse yourself in the middle of it and tear your gut out worrying about it and thinking about it. I'm just saying, when you carrying it in the back of your mind, then when things start to happen, then you can quickly say, oh, I know what that is. And it does not drive you into fear. And it allows you to continue on down the path toward the new world without getting derailed because it's so scary or big or fast or whatever it is that you can't effectively deal with it. And so it's going to be an interesting run, an interesting ride, if you will, in any kind of case. And it's coming faster and faster. There's multiple folks smart people with some with very sophisticated technologies are all suggesting it really starts very soon, in a matter of a couple of 3 weeks, and then runs for maybe 6 or 8 months, or at least to the end of the year, before it starts to kind of come together and reconfigure itself into what the beginning of what will become stable. It might be longer than that if you do have a civil war and then you got to go scramble and bring yourself all together. That's still a different vector, right? It's a different vectoral direction. You know where it's going, and you're rebuilding toward a new world. I mean, it's a whole different kind of mindset that says, wow, now we got to go build something new. And now you can start to really put into place the concepts and the ideas that will take us toward a new world. So again, it'll be very interesting as we go forward here. And I'll look forward to talking to you all regularly during this process. So I'll see you.